Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Magic Mirror Podcast. I'm your host, not as usual, 33 Elk, joined by my usual co-host, Salubrious Snail.
Hello, hello.
And special guest, Joey Schultz from the EDH Recast.
Hey, that's my name. I'm Joey. Hi.
Sadly, Khan is still not with us here, but this is a little bit of a bonus episode that we're just recording for fun in the meantime. Sadly, the Trinket Mage is 5 creature cards deep in the graveyard. We are buybacking this corpse dance as fast as possible to get him back here.
This is why you have me here to just cast a straight up living death. I'll get them all back at once.
By the time this podcast does go live, Khan will be back though, and he'll do an ad read right now to prove it.
This podcast is sponsored by Card Castle, the easy way to sort your collection digitally. If you want to start scanning and sorting your cards today, click the link below for 1 free month of premium access. You can also scan your cards even faster using their card bot. Click the other link below if you want to see if your local game store has one available. Thanks to Card Castle for sponsoring the podcast.
Wait, you mean I'm not a permanent new co-host replacing the other person? I was really misled. Sorry. I had like 2 hours notice that I'd be doing this today. I really misread a lot of the memo. I'm sorry.
The Magic Mirror Podcast prides itself on alerting its guests in a reasonable amount of time before they start recording. But speaking of corpse dance from the intro gag, we're going to be talking a little bit about recursion today in some vein, as well as specifically, more broadly, talking about making resilient game plans for your EDH decks, how to counteract removal, protect your stuff, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, fitting that you have me on for this one. This was a fun one for me. When people ask why I like graveyard decks as much as I do, kind of my signature style, to be honest, resiliency is my number one answer. It's a very Obi-Wan Kenobi. Go ahead and try and strike me down, but I promise I'll come back even more powerful. Just wipe my board. I dare you. I will get them all back. It's the type of strategy that is hard to unseat permanently, and that's why I like it so much. So this is a fun topic.
Definitely depends on the style of graveyard deck a little, but we can get into that, I guess.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's definitely ways to counteract some graveyard players out there, but I do agree that the graveyard strategy is one that is, of course, one of the most resilient in the game, provided you don't get hit in the head with a bog. You're able to just buy back anything you want.
I can't believe you would even bring up my nemesis on this podcast. Do you know how many people ask me to sign Bojuka Bogs? It's a really high number, and it's so funny every time. But yeah, Bojuka Bogs are homophobic. There, I said it.
No, exactly. It's true.
You heard it here, folks.
I made a video about my Reanimator deck recently, and the Reanimator deck's name on Moxfield is please, oh please don't bog me. It's just, that's it. So, of course, naturally, we have a lot of recursive elements in graveyards, but I kind of let's maybe unfold the diaspora of graveyard decks that there are. I've done a video recently about not having like a solitaire commander deck, so to speak, or like having a deck that's able to interact with the table as well as defend itself. And one of the options I used in that video was my Judith the Scourge Diva list as an example. And I feel like Aristocrats, not only on the front of graveyard recursion do they have a lot of resiliency, but they also have a lot of resiliency in duplicates of effects. So they run multiple sack outlets, they run multiple fodder pieces, and they run multiple payoffs. So there's redundancy also helping create this tenacity. You
don't have like all of your eggs in the basket of a single card that is the most unique version of that. Like if someone gets rid of your Zulaport or whatever, you've still got, I don't know, 6 others that you could reasonably draw pretty quick. Pretty darn big ingredient for making sure that your decks actually feel capable of not being set back too drastically, and that you can actually reasonably put together a plan, even if it is a plan B.
I think before we get too deep into the specifics here, I want to bring in a point that Khan made on one of his recent videos that I liked, which is that a lot of times synergy can be a kind of stand-in for power cards, in that synergy can make up this kind of powerful game plan that is less vulnerable than some, just because you are kind of putting together these engines with so many different cards, and a lot of times there are multiple ways to put things together. And that's what I kind of think of when I think about Judith, is you've got lots of things that kind of work with each other, but also work with other things and work with other things, and you can kind of piece these together into different types of engines, depending on the situation, depending on what you have on hand.
Yeah, sort of that Aesop's Fable thing of like a single branch can be broken pretty easily, but you get a bundle of twigs together and it's a lot harder to break them when your deck is synergizing really nicely, it does have a bit more of that effect where removing any single piece is not going to absolutely demolish you.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, for certain. Like, yeah, you might get rid of my skull clamp, for instance, but then immediately in the wings off the top rope, here comes Alesha who laughs at fate to buy back the last thing I sacrificed, right? So now I'm doing graveyard loops instead of drawing actual cards or what have you. So there's always another new way to make advantage in an Aristocrats deck where you have these sorts of 3 archetypes of cards. And so long as you have all 3 somewhere going around, you're feeling pretty good about yourself in terms of gameplay wise. Maybe we want to shift our focus now, talking a little bit maybe about self-mill decks, which do take a different posture than Aristocrats decks. For me, when I think of like a self-mill deck, I'm thinking of something that's like running 6, it's running Eternal Witness, maybe some like stupid Son half loop, right? So Shigeki, God, what a nightmare card. Multiple regrowths in one, and then you can regrowth a regrowth and then regrowth back Shigeki. That's a ton of fun. So I feel like even in like a Bazooka Bog world where you're just getting your graveyard exiled every single time, there's a lot of instant speed answers to such a thing. So I whenever there's like a graveyard deck, I'm always like so shocked by the number of people that are like, oh, I just run Bazooka Bog and then you're over. It's like, there's a lot of tenacity that graveyard decks have now.
Yeah. I think if you're discussing self-mill, an interesting relationship I've been having with that this year has been Winter Cynical Opportunist. I got that precon, liked it a whole lot more than I thought I was going to, and ended up upgrading it. And the funny thing about Winter is that it does actually consume a Delirium's worth of cards from your own graveyard to bring something back. And that does actually slowly empty out your own graveyard. So you're kind of doing the work for other people to like remove stuff from your graveyard. But then you, I don't know, you cheat in a 9-drop. Like when I get back a free Bahamut, I'm feeling okay about that. And it gives a finality counter. And on that, I know a lot of people saw Winter and they sort of interpreted it as just like a worse Marin. But to be honest, I'm like, I don't know. I got a free Zendikar Resurgent. It feels okay to me. I don't mind if it has a finality counter on it. I got a free Zendikar Resurgent. But it is funny that I'm removing stuff from my own graveyard. So I am already accustomed to every turn I'm going to be refilling it anyhow. So a single instance of graveyard exile is not going to hurt me nearly as badly as people think that it will, because I'm already ready for that. In fact, I'm already doing that a little bit myself. And it sort of forces them to change their relationship to how they think they're going to tackle me.
I almost think that encourages building a better deck on the part of the deck builder when you have your own things, exiling things from your graveyard. And I think I have somewhat of the same thing with my Malfagor deck, where I have multiple escape cards, multiple like collect evidence cards. If you're already kind of in the mindset of, you know, your graveyard's kind of a resource that you're going to be churning through over time and not just like a dragon's lair, massive loot pile to throw things on, I think it makes you a lot less vulnerable to kind of graveyard exile and stuff, and it puts you in a better mindset.
That's kind of a shift that a lot of players need to make, because I think we do, a lot of us come to the format sort of just viewing it from the sense of accumulation, just get as much as I possibly can. But there are some of those things that feel a little bit more like I've got to construct the railway in front of me as this train continues to move, which is a very different pace, but it can really throw people off when you're not playing the just mountain of resources accumulation game, whether it's with the actual lands that you have or the creatures in play or indeed your yard.
Yeah, I don't know a single person personally who has a graveyard deck that's very heavily constructed and focuses on exiling their own graveyard all the time. But I feel like we've talked a little bit too much about the obvious recursion strategy, tenacity strategy, that being graveyard decks. And maybe we want to talk a little bit more about how every other color beyond black gets some cool defensive options to help support their game plan.
That's wild. Once again, I really thought that we were just here talking about only graveyard stuff, that I'd be the new co-host. All right, I did not read this memo you sent me. Dang. All right, cool. What else is next on the docket? Let's see. Elk wants to talk about how they're wrong about the hybrid mana rule, and Joey convinced them. All right, cool. That's good to know. All right, I appreciate that.
Oh, hey, listen, Joey, it's by erasure to not have hybrid mana work this way. What are you trying to say?
What in the world are you talking about? If the format is gay, don't try to convince it it's not gay. Like, it's already on one end of the spectrum. Why are you trying to move it somewhere else? All right, I've thoroughly derailed us, making up whatever your memo says. But anyway, yes, on to the actual thing you wanted to talk about.
Please give us like 200 comments about hybrid mana, please. It helps us in the algorithm.
I feel like it's funny to point out that actually after I dropped my video about that, immediately Elk was just like messaged me like an hour later, just like, hey, let's talk. Can we talk more about this? It was a very funny energy and a really good chat. I really appreciated that. We don't agree, but like it was really nice to get to know each other's perspectives.
I definitely just wanted a perspective from you, because it was like your video is pretty decent and it had some points that were more well thought out than other people, blood artists, you know.
How dare you? I like his video.
No offense, Blood Artist. I love you.
I like this video a lot. Well, this really derailed us a lot more than I thought.
To be clear, everyone, we're all friends. Anyway, we are here talking about resiliency. The topic itself is resilient, obviously. So I am curious, outside of these graveyard decks, how else we can create a resilient game plan that doesn't just like blow away with the first removal spell or what have you, right? Whether that be with redundant pieces or backup plans, right? So once again, turning our vision away from graveyard decks, I am a little bit curious about maybe how the other colors, especially red, can kind of get to this sort of point of protecting itself from interaction. How do you see it in your guys' decks?
Yeah, if I may offer first, honestly, the fun thing for me with red ends up being deterrence more than anything. I'm thinking like the card Vicious Shadows, for instance. It's like a red enchantment. When creatures die, you deal damage to people equal to the number of cards in their hand. I'll deal 4 damage to you per creature because you have 4 cards in your hand. And that could still be enough to kill you. And that is a nice way to make sure that your stuff does not actually get dealt with. And that is a version of the resiliency that is really fun for me to tinker around with in those decks, I think.
Yeah, so I actually had that exact experience where I've played Zerzoth a ton, and I've had friends who've played Zerzoth decks before. And so Zerzoth makes a bunch of devils, the devils that ping you when they die. Mm-hmm. And the moment you have those devils in play with a Goblin Bombardment, with a like a damage multiplier as well, or like a O'Hare Ashenil making them all deal 4. All of a sudden, when there's like 8 times 6 devils in play, amount of non-combat damage that can happen at instant speed, we've entered the hostage situation portion of Magic the Gathering, where if you put something they don't like on the stack, they're going to counterspell it by killing you. Make sure to run your Crows and Grips. Yes, I used to always shit on Crows and Grips, but let me tell you, that split second when there's a Goblin Bombardment in play, you've never been happier to have 2 words of text on a card.
I think this kind of ties in with an idea that I laid out in like a really old video like 2 years ago. I think it was called Aggro Ideology. Just the idea that if you get your opponent down to a certain life total, you will have so many more tools to keep them in check and to keep them from running away with things.
Yeah, the old Athreus trick, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good option.
Yeah.
Though in general, I'm probably not the person to ask for red resiliency because my green-red deck uses green resiliency and my red-black deck uses black resiliency methods.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone knows about Tybalt's Trickery, by the way. Chaos Warp's a spell, whatever. It's like a red counterspell in Commander, right? Broke many other formats. We don't have to talk about the cuteness you can get into.
It's a good card.
Yeah, we don't have to get into the cuteness with it, but you can use it as a red counterspell. I see it quite frequently and it works pretty well. But I also want to turn people's attention to Glorious End.
Oh my God, yes.
Wow, you would. Of course you would.
It's 2 in a red for an instant, and it just says end the turn. At the beginning of your next end step, you lose the game. And now this is played in like Obeka, right?
Yeah.
Or like Sundial decks that can end the turn before that trigger kills you. But you can just use this as a red counter spell and you won't lose the game if you kill your opponent. Someone puts a Farewell on the stack and you have lethal on board. No, they didn't.
No, this is hilarious tech, and it's really funny to see it used as a counter spell, but it does work. Also, if you have Angel's Grace, if you're a Boros player, I have a friend who had a Jeskai Sunforger deck with Glorious End and Angel's Grace, and so you just Glorious End, and then on your turn you Angel's Grace to make sure you don't lose the game at end of turn.
Yeah, speaking of hybrid mana earlier, you put Wheel of Sun and Moon in that deck, you skip all of your opponent's turns, you have a good time.
You are absolutely filthy, Elk. You just can't help but find the grossest energy. It's delightful.
Oh no.
The red does definitely benefit from I've been aggro enough so far that once you finally are in a position to try and unseat me, it's going to be the choice of 2 different damnations, basically. Like, are you going to take damage this way or are you going to take damage that way? A recent game that I played with Ailey on Hijinks actually had a phenomenal moment where she was trying to, I think, like Chandra's Ignition, the table with a great big lifelinking creature. And so it's like, oh, she's positioning to gain like 200 life off of this, which was a terrific move. And I had a removal spell. And then in response to my removal spell, she was like, well, fine. If I'm not going to be able to Chandra's Ignition this thing, I guess I'm just going to fling it at you. And then just dealt the lethal damage to me that way. Red definitely has it. I feel like you should try to position yourself as best as possible to be like, it's going to hurt one way or the other. This really is going to end up being the color where offense is your best defense more than anything.
Yes, certainly. I think when it comes to protection, red is definitely the underdog of the colors. Naturally so. It's very flavorful for them to not be that keen on protecting their stuff. And we've kind of gone over the ways that red can kind of circumnavigate that. I feel like it gets a lot more obvious for white, green, and blue. And we've talked about black opening the podcast, the obvious recursive best friend. So when it comes to Bant decks, not Bant decks in particular, but decks containing some amount of the Bant identity, you get counter spells, you get mass indestructible, phasing, right? All these gnarly plays to keep your things safe. But I am curious about maybe fitting these cards better into your archetypes. In a recent video of mine, I talked about Gisath decks maybe not running redirection spells, but instead running a Cutsil kind of effect to prevent spells during your turn, because it's already such a mana intensive play.
Yeah.
So you can't really have the mana up to redirect.
Yeah, I enjoy that a lot. I mean, aside from the obvious like deflecting spot, yada, yada, there are a lot of commanders for whom setting the stage properly will make all the difference. And Gisath certainly falls into that camp. If you've set up the board for it to truly have as impactful of a moment as you want it to be, then it's really going to be able to go off, and that will set you up for the success that you need for the ability to work, and then for you to get all of the other stuff from there that could domino forward to actually help you protect the board from further on. But it is not the kind of thing that can be just done blindly, I suppose. So yeah, I agree with that assessment.
Yeah. So I am curious how you two sort of fit these protection suites in your decks, even in the colors that are the most obviously best at protecting. Is there any sort of cute interaction you guys run in specific decks because they fit the mold of the deck better versus, just a generic option like a counterspell?
Yeah.
We're like set on Bant colors now, or just general question.
I mean, like, I feel like generally speaking, like, is there like protection you run that isn't the set staple for the color pair just because it fits the mold of the deck better?
I will a lot of times categorize haste as a form of protection, just because if you have like a critical card that needs to activate an ability or get a hit in or something like that, haste can make it happen and, lessen the feeling that you're getting shut down automatically. And other than that, I usually just run counterspells if I'm in blue. I just really like counterspells. It's just very nice to be able to kind of, hit 5 birds with one stone.
Snail, you always say your favorite color is black, but you're like spiritually red. Like, all of your answers.
Counter spells?
No haste.
Oh yeah. I like haste. I like red. That's fun.
No haste is a very good option. Like having your cards do something right away is very important, especially in a more cutthroat, fast kind of game.
Yeah. It's so funny that would be the first answer that you give, Snail, because literally tonight I was just playing at a very gay game night here in Seattle, and I was testing out. I know that I'm building mono green earthbending. I know that I have an earthbending tattoo. I'm freaking building earthbending, and I had a shell of a deck that I swapped some cards out to try out the new mono green Toph Master Earthbender or whatever she's called, or to play Avatar Kyoshi, which is the 8 mana one. Toph, the way that it was kind of interesting, like she has the greatest amount of potential. She gives you a whole bunch of experience counters when you landfall, and then she will, when you attack, do an earthbend and make a huge big creature. And it was not difficult for me to use her to make it like to earthbend for 44. Like it was absolutely wild. But I found myself actually preferring the deck when it was built as Avatar Kyoshi, who's like 8 mana, comes down, and then immediately on combat is going to animate something as an 8/8 with haste. Again, going back to like I've set up the board for her, a single branching evolution, and then suddenly I'm not just earthbending for an 8. I'm making a 16 power creature and I'm going raw and probably sacrificing it to a greater good and then immediately like drawing a lot of cards. It was really dang fun. But haste was a huge part of that. I liked the immediacy. Even though Kyoshi is a little bit more of a steady beat compared to the potential that Toph was able to do, I really find myself drawn to the immediacy that haste can do. Because even when an empty board arrives, even if the board does get wiped and everything is set back, I cast the commander and then boom, I'm right back into it. Was a really enchanting feeling. I really, really liked that. It helped me to set my board right back up and get right back into the swing of things in a deeply compelling way. So yeah, the how fast you can rebuild has become a much more important ingredient in a lot of my deck building these days.
I was about to say like Sereth the Viper's Fang would be such a good inclusion for an 8 mana commander, but nope. Don't have to worry about hexproof. Avatar Kyoshi has hexproof during your turn.
She's quite good.
So yeah, you can just drop her and just like, here's my 8/8 land.
She killed Jin the Conqueror. She makes mountains and sends them at your face. It's just a great big pile of stuff. It was enjoyable. But yeah, just to echo what you were saying, Snail, haste is the type of thing that does get you back into it. To kind of piggyback off of this a little bit too, as well, a thing that I find myself deeply drawn to are the board wipes that leave you with a board after you cast them. Like if you're slightly on the back foot and you cast a Martial Coup or White Sun Zenith, you destroy all the creatures, but you're left with a bunch of 1/1s that then on your next turn you can pump up with something and then just go rar. I really, really find myself drawn to those because it is helping you get back into the swing of things even after a reset.
I am a Winds of Abandon truther.
Me too. Me too.
That card is so busted. It's so good.
Yeah, it really pushes your advantage when you're in the right spot.
Oh yeah, it just kills people too sometimes. It's very great.
It's also a basic land check. We always love those just to see how many basics people have in their deck.
You don't get the opportunity, pal. I got the Ava Mind Sensor in the pocket. That thing got flashed out ages ago.
I'm also realizing in my continual effort to constantly try and cast removal spells on this topic and then derail us into a completely different topic. Did I say White Sun Zenith? I think I meant White Sun's Twilight. Whatever the one is that makes mites. Y'all should know the one I'm talking about. I probably misstated what it was though.
Honestly, I immediately thought of one from a different set that does basically the same thing. I don't remember what it's called, but it was like from like a 15 years ago set.
It does sort of feel like you can just string a bunch of different words together and you'll land on a magic card somewhere. If you just we've got enough cards in the game.
We're
nowadays.
Getting there.
Yeah.
Martial Coup, that's the one I was thinking of.
Martial Coup,
very
yes.
similar to White Sun Zenith.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Avatar Kyoshi is a perfect example of that Gisath sort of situation. And those also the haste situation.
Did you say Gisath?
Gisath. It's not a real name. It's a fake dinosaur.
I just want to clarify for the listening audience out there on the 405. Did you say Gisath?
It's fictional. They don't deserve.
Everyone jumped on me too in my video because I say Gishath.
Gishath?
And it's just like, oh, you don't yeah, Gishath. That's what I said in the video. And I was like, no one's ever corrected me in my entire life on that dino's name. I also heard Gishath, and apparently it's a guy. My fault.
Listen, I pronounce it Bont instead of Band, so I really don't have room to talk here.
Bont. Oh my God. No, I was talking with my friend Christian. I was like, you say mana. And he's like, do I? I thought I said mana. I'm like, no. And then immediately later that night, he's like, mana. He's like, oh, I say it that way, don't I?
Yeah.
It's only when I pounced on him that he fixed it.
We've all got that. I also pronounce it Celes instead of Celeste. When I built speaking of recursive deck, that's definitely one of them. That deck rebuilds really dang fast. But yeah.
Is Celeste or Kellis? Rune Knight? I don't play Final Fantasy.
Not Kellis. That's really what the topic should have been for this episode, is us just wildly mispronouncing every single card name.
That commander is broken.
She is. She's absolutely disgusting. I tried to reel her in as much as possible because I'm not doing combo. But yeah, she immediately fills your yard. And then the way that I built that deck was just chaining a bunch of creatures that will get back more creatures. So you're playing like Sister Hospitaller, which will then, there's another card I probably mispronounced, that will then revive like whatever that 6 mana cleric is that revives a creature with a lifelink counter on it. And then that will get me a Sun Titan, which gets me a Necromancy, which then brings me back an Angel that will bring back another human or something like that. Like that deck.
Dude, just cast Living Death.
Of course, you discarded an Anger earlier too, so it's all coming in this turn.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. So those are the types of things too that just like the entire strategy there is built to chain things together. So you can go ahead and try and remove a couple of those pieces, but
I imagine you're on Flare of the Hatebound, right?
100%. It was in the precon.
Oh wait, really?
Yes, yeah.
I had no idea. Yeah. That's so cool. Another great way to have resiliency against a board wipe. Just they don't have a turn. It's just I've done my graveyard thing. You're dead.
Well, to be honest here, a thing worth pointing out is that this is one of the other reasons why sacrifice outlets are so good, right? Like sacrifice outlets are just a free action that you can take that doesn't cost mana. And when you can do something that doesn't cost mana in a game that is built entirely around a mana system, it's going to be a powerful move. But the ability to deliberately place it back into your graveyard where you already know you might have something that can get it back later, even if it is just a Bala Ged recovery, feels a lot stronger than running the risk of it getting exiled by a different type of effect. So
this is the exact reason I picked Ailey as a commander for my Reanimator deck.
Yeah, there you go.
I built it around Villas, Broker of Blood, and she does cost 1 mana to sack something, but it's really easy to hold that up, especially once Villas gives you a mana payment to just draw cards if you don't need to use her. So, but the reason why I chose Ailey partially was because if anyone goes like Swords to Plowshares your Villas or somehow otherwise exile your Villas, I can sack Villas, gain the life back I used to reanimate him, and then it's in the graveyard again where I can just pull it back out.
Yeah, pretty dang gross. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I love instant speed sack outlets. They are so broken. I feel like another thing that can kind of be touched upon that really doesn't get talked about, like green has heroic intervention and stuff, but like ramping as a form of resiliency is really powerful. Going back to the big dino example, like you can kill Gisath so many times.
I heard the pause right before you said Gishath, and that was very cute.
I'm unable to like unprogram it. I'm sorry, everyone. But
it's so cute. It's very fun. It's very fun. I know it sounds like I'm teasing, but I promise we mean it with love.
But like, so what the point is, if you ramp hard enough, you can just like, eventually you just have green omniscience, right? With enough lands and mana, like you can just like recast your commander for the rest of the game. It doesn't matter if they remove it.
Yeah. This is the entire idea of my Rata deck is it is impossible to slow down. Board wipes don't really do anything against it unless I'm top decking, which I almost never am. And if I am, I can get myself out of it. It just gets a billion lands and, my opponents just have to deal with that.
Well, this was part of the justification behind the Golos ban, yeah? Just like immediately when you play it, it's getting you a land, which will help you to recast it even if it does get removed. So it had that built-in level of, yeah, I'm going to be all right. If I need to be cast again, I guess I will. There is, to me, though, on the subject of like ramp, like, yeah, that will afford you a certain amount of stuff. In general, I think personally, try to lean a little bit harder on the card advantage side of things to help me continually stay in the game more than the ramp side of things. Just because, I mean, even with the decks that I was playing just tonight, testing out my Earthbender stuff, that was a whole lot of ramp. It was a whole lot of ramp. I had a lot of lands. But if I didn't get my card draw stuff, it was all dressed up and no place to go. Whole lot of mana with not as much as I could actually spend it on. So that's like the potential pitfall of that direction if you end up going there. I'm not saying it's a bad idea at all, just that there is potentially a caveat or an asterisk,
Yeah, I do feel like it depends on commander. So like if your commander is just such a massive bomb like Dr. G the dinosaur, then yeah, that's then maybe you go more in on ramp over card draw in my mind, because that is just a huge card advantage bomb and tempo bomb.
Where did he get his PhD? Where did he get his doctorate? Dr. G.
Ixalan.
I made the mistake of taking a sip of water at exactly the moment that you said that. Holy crap. Oh, it's nearly coming up my nose, people. That's incredible. Dr. G.
I just don't want to say that name anymore, but it's just a perfect illustration of the point that I want to make every single time.
I mean, I think there's also a point to really focusing on card draw, really focusing on ramp. You can do either of these things, but this is also just something you're going to figure out with time. And if you start out with a deck that is really good at one of those, you'll generally figure out how to get the other one. If you focus wholly on ramp, you will figure out how to, as long as you are trying to improve your deck, you will figure out how to get better ways to spend your mana, get better ways to kind of break stalls, just figure out ways like that. Likewise, I think if you tend to run a whole lot of card advantage, you'll notice points in the game where you want a little bit of extra mana, and a lot of times there are cute ways to do that, even if you're not in green. I use like some kind of land reanimation methods in white for my Shroom deck, just because I need that little bit of extra mana later, and that's quite nice.
Yeah, I mean my whole Cormorella deck is based on non-green ramp. It's just like trying to jump immediately to turn 7 or 8 to start casting these big stupid sorceries and instants.
Yeah, Cormella's legit.
Cormella is so broken. The card is messed up.
That's a really good card.
Off topic. We love going off topic this episode. With Cormella, my average mana value with her has now reached 4.5.
Hell yeah.
All right.
I am slowly but surely just making the mana value higher until the deck doesn't work anymore. That's my current.
Well, my Rata deck's at 5.36 currently, so you need to work on it a little bit. Come on, get it up.
I think what's hurting me so bad is my explosive vegetation's in the command zone and not in the deck.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, my most recent change is I cut 3 mana rocks for the Strixhaven discard this card, create a treasure token instance and sorcery.
Really?
Yeah,
that can't be good.
It's horrific. It's awful, but I need to make the mana value bigger.
That's really funny.
You need to understand how bad these cards are. One of them just says make 2 4/4s for 7 mana.
That's good as hell.
It's really bad.
Love it.
Amazing. Dang, I just looked at a deck that I thought would have the biggest mana value. It's only 4.28, so y'all beat me. That's my Yannette deck, by the way.
We need to get Tomer in here with the 6 mana value deck.
Actually, I'll jump off of this. It's just funny that we were talking about like green ramp. I don't know. Whenever people say like, oh, you can't ramp outside of green, I'm just like, okay. Just like I'm looking at my Yannette deck's acceleration package right now, and I'm churning her out pretty dang fast because I want to get her out and attacking ASAP so that she can cheat things into play. And I have quite a lot of mana rocks about that. I feel like we're pretty good about it. And even then, this is actually sort of another form of resiliency. See, I'm trying to actually stay on topic for once. My fail state in that deck, if let's say that my Yannette does get completely bombed, she gets nuked, and then I can't actually stick her in play to then attack and cheat stuff into play. My fail state in that deck is just, okay, well, I still have a lot of mana, and now I'm just going to cast my 9 drops. And that seems okay. That's not the worst thing in the world, because I do have a suitable amount of acceleration to either get her out quickly or to just like actually start hard casting them as the game progresses, and cheating them into play doesn't matter quite as much. I'm just like, all right, cool. Here's going to be a regular Skullstorm. I guess I'll just regular cast for you if you insist. And that still does pretty decently. It's like, as backup plans go, just big beasties and big spells it ain't feeling that bad.
Yeah, Cormella, it's like, okay, as I increase the mana value like a madman, you should not be doing this to your deck. You should try to maybe cut down on your mana value, if anything. But I'm doing science. But Cormella, as the mana value balloons and inflates and gets stupid high, Cormella becomes much more of a horrific kill on sight thing, where if you kill her, you unramp me by 2 turns. So what I've been doing is I've just been putting more board wipes in Cormella. So if you kill her, I'm going to just like drag you all down with me until I can cast this 9-drop.
One of these days you will describe a synergy that isn't completely gross, but it is not this day. We are such different players. It's terrific.
Oh no, like I try to run the counter magic. So if you go destroy Cormella, I counterspell it. I have a few counter spells in there. But no, it's scorched earth the moment Cormella leaves the battlefield. Like, okay, you didn't want to see Clone Legion on turn 5, you're getting Wrath.
Oh my god, what? Clone Legion is one of the most time-consuming cards to resolve in the history of the game. Like, I want to like that card more than I do.
It's so bad, especially when you start copying it, Joey, and you have the copy target yourself, and then you legend rule Cormella and get it back.
Oh, Jesus.
So you can do it again.
So anyway, another form of resilience. Sorry, Snow, what were you about to say?
I was about to say I can't judge. I'm a Soulfire Eruption lover, but at least I don't copy it.
Listen, I regularly cast Living Death, so I'm kind of accustomed to all the triggers all at once. That's
oh yeah, that can be.
I'm a Glasshouse Throne Stones over here, so I totally kind of related to this though. To use this as a bit of a jumping off point, a whole lot of this comes back down to the idea of like basically overextending. When we talk about resilience, like the need for it in the deck at all, it's because you will need to recover. And there are certainly going to be moments where you don't have to recover at all if your opponents just like don't have ways of meaningfully interacting with your board. Say that you're, protecting them with all of the hexproof and the indestructible and stuff like that. Definitely a form of resilience. But there are certain spells that I definitely sandbag just in case I'm going to be dealt with. Like I pulled up my Yannette deck here, so even looking at that, Amanatu's Augury is a pretty classic version of that for me, which I really like that card. It's a whole lot of fun. I almost always will prioritize the other cards in my hand to cast before I play into Amanatu's Augury, because that's the kind of thing that even if I get board wiped and even if I get dealt with, casting into Amanatu's Augury and getting so many cards off the top and playing so many things for free from that spell is the type of thing that would probably get me back into the game. Or casting like a Genesis Storm. I have that in my my Commander deck, which will like cheat usually like 4 or 5 things back into play. That kind of has some get up and go to it where I can reestablish a semblance of a board state after a setback. So they're the types of cards that I would sandbag if I was not able, like even when I'm in a good position, they're the kind of cards that I'm not going to actually cast so as to not like press my advantage too much and invite the board wipe upon me. It's, just in case a board wipe happens, I have those locked and loaded, ready to go for the following turn, just in case.
I do tend to hold back on threats, especially if I have stuff already in play, and especially if the things I have in play and the things I might want to play are the same type. I'm a big fan of following the rule of building advantages in multiple zones and with multiple card types. So I don't want to just commit creatures to board or just commit artifacts to board, because that kind of risks having problems. And
Sure.
I also think it's good to keep in mind a balance between hand and battlefield and graveyard and maybe exile and kind of, trying to keep decent advantage in hand, trying to keep decent stuff on battlefield, and then also utilizing these other zones as points to kind of cling to if problems arise, because they are nice. If you have an adventure card, if you have impulse draw that goes until the end of your next turn, if you have these other things, it's very good for, putting advantage out in ways where it is much more likely to stick around and where you're less likely to lose everything to a single board wipe.
I really like that. The play from exile decks especially feel very insulated from this, because they often have another small number of cards locked and loaded in the exile zone. So even if you do destroy their stuff, they're like, well, I can still play these 2 or 3 cards from exile because of what I did on my last turn. I have a buddy who's got a Kellen the Fey-Blooded deck, which is, I think, the Bant one, not the Bont one. Sorry, I'm trying to correct the way I say it, everybody. Or he's got like, he had a Gaunty deck that he turned into Laughing Jasper Flint. And those are the types of things that just are chock full of cards that will let you play more things from exile later and meaningfully disrupting that board when he's got something else that's still waiting there in exile that he's probably going to be able to play next turn. It's hard to permanently disrupt him from that too. So yeah, Snail, I love that example of the exile stuff. That's also playing with the extra zones. It's
A
brilliant.
large amount of card advantage is a form of resiliency. Like if you're able to like draw 10 cards, you can recover from anything, even a farewell. Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. I do want to kind of shift our lens a little bit because we're talking about maybe how to bake resiliency into a deck and make it hyper consistent and less fragile per se. But I feel like there are certain decks where the fragility is just kind of inherent in the game plan.
Yeah.
Something like this is like Voltron, for instance, where if you have a game plan of kill you with my guy, if your guy is permanently locked in prison forever, you need to figure out a way either to hyper protect him or build a side plan. And for me, this is my Sephara deck. The way I sort of navigate this is one, it's a white deck. I'm able to run all these protection spells. There's a huge protection suite, but also I use lightning rod kind of creatures where she cheats herself out based on flying. Sephara can be a 1-mana 7/7 with the right board. And if you have a Hushbringer as one of those flying creatures, that can be really annoying for some people.
Yes, it can.
So
yes, it can.
they'll typically point the sword sometimes at that Hushbringer instead of the Sephara that's killing them because it stops all their other stuff. So I am curious what you guys think about, like, so in my deck, it's Sephara, Hate Bears, Voltron. How do you build up sub themes in these sort of fragile archetypes that don't cannibalize the main theme?
I don't know if for me it comes down to sub themes so much as the backup plans for those feel like they'll have to end up being a lot more deliberate. It's funny that you mentioned flying. My mom plays a flying deck. She's got Aaron Giada, and Sephara is classically a thing that she's going to play in there. But she often gets into a cadence with those decks where it's either a Sephara or a Sarah's Emissary giving her protection from card types, or she's got a Linvala that she can sacrifice to protect her board for a turn, or Selfless Spirit that she can sacrifice to protect her board for a turn. Like there's sort of a density of those types of effects that have been very consciously pieced together to make sure that the bundle of sticks feels a little bit more unbreakable from several different axes. So I don't know if like sub theme ends up being the feeling for me quite as much, at least in that particular example, compared to like the deliberate pieces of insurance that you've made sure to lock and load beforehand, because they are the strategies that if you are being a little bit careless or not paying attention to that area, it is not going to serve you very well. So if
Your
you have
mother sounds like exactly my type of Magic the Gathering player.
don't you be flirting with my mother here. She's taken.
Hey, listen, pal. I don't swing that way. But also, no, I love like 50 Selfless Spirits on my board. That's like my favorite way to play Magic the Gathering. I like 12 safety blankets at all times.
Yeah, safety blankets, honestly. Like that's the kind of thing for those, is that it does feel like there are certain archetypes that I'll want to very consciously be like, all right, let me get as many of these things in here as possible. Actually, my speaking of like people in my family who play, my friend Tamia, she's got an elf deck. And we're pretty commonly, we associate like Golgari elves with like the Lathrils of the world, which makes a whole bunch of elf tokens. And maybe that is the type of deck that can just be so fast that you just make so many creatures that it overwhelms your opponents. But to me, in my experience, it's been the kind of thing that is a little bit set back by a single board wipe. It really can overextend. And if you don't have those protective spells like a heroic, then a single board wipe is really going to mess you up. She opted instead for Abomination of Llanowar as her commander, which gets bigger for each elf in your graveyard. So the main plan is just, sure, here's a bunch of elves. I'm doing classic elf ball things. And then if you do destroy everything, now here's my commander who is going to start off as a 12, and it will only get worse for you from there. And that's another interesting cadence of resilience there too as well, is the function that your commander can fulfill in that equation, or the ready-made backup plan in the command zone, which has been something enchanting. I really appreciate her approach to that too.
Yeah. Oh man, talking about like large creatures in the command zone, like buy your Susser Secundis while you can. That land is so good.
What card?
Susser Secundi Void Altar. It's the black planet from Edge of Eternities. You can station it once it has 12 counters. You can pay 1 in a black, tap it, pay 2 life, and sacrifice a creature.
Oh, that card's great.
Draw cards equal to the sacrifice creature's power. So it's already asking you to have a big creature, so it's free to station effectively. Like, it's such a good card. It's ridiculously strong.
You know, you mentioned earlier, Elk, you also mentioned like equipment style decks. I'll definitely admit that equipment decks are not my forte at all. It's a type of deck that I just don't have quite as much like strength or assurances in my play patterns there. That said, I have a lot of experience being steamrolled by them. And a thing that really impresses me is like, especially Arden as a commander, which just, even after a setback, Arden comes down and immediately just auto attaches a whole bunch of crap to a single creature. That's also really nice. That's also a pretty darn. Or there's like a Fervent Champion, I think it is. It's a red. Equipping me costs 3 less, and it's got trample and haste. Having a couple of those
super good with
too.
swords.
So good with swords. That thing absolutely messes me up. It's wild. And yeah, so like I do feel like there are still several of those hacks that even an equipment deck, which feels like the type of all eggs in one basket. If I get a setback, it's so hard for me to get back into the game. There are actually a couple of nice tricks that they do have access to that will take people by complete surprise.
Yeah, you think equipment's bad. Auras, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh my lord, so bad. And we're far past the prime of crystal chimes. You're paying 6 mana to not do anything for a turn, but fill up your hand is like death sentence into Day Commander.
Got to get you those retethers and all that kind of stuff to try and get all those auras back for sure.
I'm looking at my Mary of Voltron deck, and my solution to the resiliency struggle is very me in that the commander's just extremely efficient and does so many jobs that the deck just has extra space for backup plans and ramp and protection. I run 13 protection spells in this deck just because I don't need that much deck space for most of the stuff. And I also run 5 kind of backup equipment bearers like Champion of the Flame, Goblin Cavalier, my boy.
Oh yeah. Like him.
And then also I run all 4 that were out at the time I last updated this deck of the like treasure creating things, Goldbane Pick, Beamtown Beatstick, those sort of things. So, I can usually repay command attacks repeatedly, and then that just immediately gives me a burst of ramp because Maria is an Urza. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah. I know. I've played against Olivia's version of that deck, and I'm constantly like, that's a lot of mana. That seems bad for me. Yeah. I feel like I'm probably completely misremembering, but I feel like there are a couple of creatures also that have that clause of like, if I die, I do a blow up amount of damage that I've seen in equipment decks. I might be misremembering here. But to be honest, those death draw or pinata style creatures, even just a Chasm Skulker of just like, all right, cool, you blow up my board, here's creatures, or even having a greater good in play is kind of like, oh, you're going to remove my stuff? Well, here's my nice insurance policy. Those are also the kind of things that can be really nice to see too, to even mildly make your opponent second guess whether or not they want to play the spell to try and set you back.
We had a Gargos player in our pod for a while, and Gargos has ward, I eat your best creature.
Yeah.
It's nightmarish. Gargos fights whenever he becomes the target of any spell, not just spells that you control. Mm-hmm. So it's really bad when you try to kill Gargos with targeting him.
Yeah.
Do we have any more comments about resiliency?
I've got one more here that I've also learned, not the hard way, but it is weird when you encounter them. And it's the commanders that don't mind dying not one tiny little bit. A commander that welcomes being removed. Buddy of mine has a Rakdos the Showstopper deck, which when it hits the field, Thanos is the table, just 50-50 for each individual creature, coin flip on whether or not it's going to survive. You don't kill the Rakdos when he's playing Rakdos. You try to keep that thing in play as long as possible because it's a board wipe in the freaking command zone. So, or honestly, even the Celeste deck that I've built, it's just like, oh, you're killing my Celeste? All right, cool. I'll play it and wheel my hand again and refill my graveyard. There are some commanders for whom a setback is secretly not a setback, and that's also a really a fun tempo to try and like engage with in the game when you notice it across the table. I think you
have described my entire play group where it's just I see Imscare.
Sure.
Yeah, it's Imscare. I play Cura. I play even Cormella works like that, where it's like, oh, I have this scary sorcery in my graveyard. Do you want me to get it back and cast it again? Like I'm past the point of needing mana now.
Oh yeah. 2 of my 3 favorite decks have an ETB commander with like no other text except for flying.
So, Malphagor
and Shroom. Yeah.
I've got a mono red Skoa deck, which is the 6 mana of 4 damage when it hits the field. It's just mono red. And that's the kind of thing I'm like, I can't wait for it to die because then I'll play it again. And the whole point is like, I've got a Fire Emancipation and a Furnace of Wrath or something like that. Just like, let me see if I can set up a whole bunch of stuff that will cause it to deal damage as soon as it arrives. And if you kill it, that sounds good for me. I'll just do it again. I'll be very reckless with it. There's a permissiveness that allows you as a player to be like, oh, I don't have to be super precious with my cards. And that's actually a fun and fleeting way to play.
It is. And I think it also lets you like lean into doing things with your commander, knowing that you don't really care if they stick around. Like I can throw auras on my Malphagor or do things with my Malphagor knowing that it's not going to be a top tier target for removal because it's not great for it to be in the command zone for my opponents. So I think it's nice.
Yeah.
I can flicker my Shroom a whole bunch and my opponents are like, do I remove that?
Shroom is such a good example for this too. Yeah. A buddy of mine has a Shroom deck and it is constant. Like, don't kill it. Don't kill it. He's going to get the thing back. Don't do that. Like, let it stay alive. We promise it's safer here.
Yeah. Imscare is really the poster child for this as well. Just like it's always 2 mana because of affinity for artifacts. It always draws you a billion cards. And it also just like has this activated ability that makes you want to kill it, but you just should never, ever do it. Run Pithing Needle, honest to God. Let's just move on to Beseech the Mirror. This is where you at home beseech us for answers. All you have to do is type mirror mirror to start your comment so we can easily find it down below. We are working with comments from 14 days ago because the podcast is rather delayed in Khan's absence.
I think we've had the last 2 episodes from or the mirror mirror has been from the same episode.
And we're scrappy. We make do here.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm the only editor over at the EDHREC side of things, so I understand the sword of Damocles that can be a deadline. Big love to your editor.
Our first question here is from Insert Creative. Mirror, mirror. My opponent control magics my animate library, so I may ask. When a deck isn't working how you want, how and when do you decide to dismantle, give up on that commander game plan versus entirely rebuild the deck? Basically, when do you decide this deck isn't working out for me, and what do you do about it?
Is it weird to say that that's actually a very emotional journey for me? I get very attached to the stuff that I build. So saying goodbye permanently is a little bit of like my kid went off to college and I don't know what's about to happen kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe that's a weird metaphor, but we put a lot of our heart into our decks. So it's a thing that I feel definitely a lot. I did this year embark on a project of deconstructing every single one of my commander decks, and I would only put them back together when I felt a strong calling to like, I definitely want to play this tonight. And there are several that I still have not put back together, which I'm realizing is probably a little bit of a sign. So observing the time between when you play them was at least a first start for me.
That's a good answer. To seeing how often you play them. I think I am somebody who tends to be overly pessimistic about my decks. Right after I build them, I will go, oh, what if this happens? What if I'm in this situation? It doesn't seem good enough in here. What I really have to do is I have to trust my deck building self and just fully commit. Say, this is my deck for the night. This is my deck for the next couple weeks. I'm going to have a blast with this. We're going to go full effort. This is a great deck. And then if at the end of that, it's not fun, it's not working out, I might have thought, oh, this was an exception game, things didn't line up this game, but then I will give myself that window, and then at the end I will say, okay, is this actually working out or is it not? Where right out's true. And I think kind of separating it out and kind of separating myself from who I was during deck building process helps me a bit with looking at my decks clearly.
Well, I'm sure each of you encounters this when like you finish a script for a video. I usually give it a day to then like come back to it with fresh eyes. And then I approach it more like I am a consumer of that script rather than the writer of that script.
Oh yeah.
And when I can view it from that lens, I'm just like, oh, this doesn't work. And I don't know if this point is made very well compared to being in the thick of it and not being able to have a zoomed out bird's eye perspective on it. And I think the same absolutely goes for deck building. Even a little bit of space and then you come back to it will help you probably see some of the flaws that might have been there that you didn't notice when you were caught up in the feeling of trying desperately to make it work or something like that. So I do think that space helps a lot.
I don't know what you're talking about. No. The second I'm finished with the script, I record that thing and it's outside of my brain until my editor's done with it. It's in and out, and then the comments yell at me for being crass, and then I'm like, well, but I probably deserve that, honestly.
I'll have the occasional like flawless video or like video where it's low stakes enough that I don't feel like I need to review the script, but I'll also have videos where I'll go a week kind of revisiting over and over again.
The idea of not reviewing a script ever is such anathema to me. I'm getting like my shoulders are raising up near my ears just listening to you say that. I can't possibly no, you got to check a script, man.
There's sometimes during my script where I'll start reading it for the recording and I'm like, oh, the point here sucks. Editor, cut this. I'm going to reread it ad lib. Yeah. And then just try it again, doing it live.
Yeah, I absolutely say every single one of mine out loud before I record, because the way that it reads in your head versus the way it actually sounds when you say it, it's very different.
What messes me up so bad is that sometimes my lowest effort videos do the best and resonate the best with the audience.
Girl, you are absolutely speaking my language. To be honest, the videos of mine that have done the best are the ones that I had zero faith in myself. Like even honestly, the 100 creators video that I did, I have like messages that I sent to people being like, this is a stupid idea, right? Like, I don't think this is great. And they were like, no, give it a shot. I don't know. And then it turned out to be the most popular video I've ever made. I'm just like, why don't I have faith in me when it works? So yeah, I feel that. And unfortunately, the weird reality is also that very often your favorite videos to make are the ones that tank, because they're a little bit left field from your usual fare, but that's a little bit too left field for what the audience wants from you, which just means that you do have to like ride that line between the passion project, the thing that you really love, and the stuff that the audience is going to be hungry for. And I've definitely misstepped in that plenty of times. But yeah, it does line up with me too, that the thing that I thought was not my best work ends up being the thing that gets a lot more attention. And the stuff that I'm super excited about is the stuff that tanks. Happens all the damn time.
I so feel that. I had my video about like EDH and communication a couple months ago that I like poured my heart and soul into. That one did fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
My Xyrus video that like I don't even understand how hard it popped off. That was thrown together in like 2 days after I didn't like another script I was working on and wanted to get a video out.
Can I, to again completely derail, like here's next on the memo. I'm reading the memo correctly.
Oh, we are so far off the rails.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So let me read this memo. Let me throw this topic in here. Yeah. Your Xyrus video going so viral is so funny because I got word from the folks at Architect that apparently my Babala Saga deck was the most viewed deck on Architect until you made your Xyrus video.
Yeah.
And now that's the number one. And they were like trying to encourage, it's just like, so your new rival, huh? And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't know the man yet. But yeah, I guess Maulhound is my evil twin brother and you are my rival in Architect on viewership, deck building, whatever. I don't know. So,
yes.
So watch out for that, Snail. We don't get along now.
I know.
Yeah, God, I had a video where I was like, I got Forrest ML, who's a real Magic the Gathering artist. Shout out Forrest. Hi. And a few like Magic fan artists that are also like very good, like some people that I know really closely. I'm like, I'm going to make my game show video that it performed well the first 2 times. It's going to be an art challenge. Magic the Gathering players love art. No, they don't. They hate art. They did not watch that video.
That's a shame.
Anyway, to answer the question though, disassembling decks and whatnot, I actually retired a deck recently. It was my Tekethal Artifact Charge Counters combo deck. And it was too efficient. It didn't prolong the suffering of my friends long enough. So that's
the youest sentence I've ever heard.
So I've swapped to Drafna, Founder of Lot Nam, as my mono blue artifact deck of choice. And the entire conceit of the deck is just copying Aeon Engine and like these horrific artifacts that are 4 and 5 mana value, and just like all these artifacts that you were never meant to recur because they exile themselves. Like God never intended you to Aeon Engine twice in a game of Magic the Gathering, but this deck is built entirely to do it with Mirror of Fate to return exiled cards.
Hell yeah. Aeon Engine was one of our preview cards like ages and ages ago. So I have a soft spot for the deck. I'm so happy you're playing that. I have that in a deck that is also very silly too. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, the deck is, by this time, the deck video is already out, but the deck loops Aeon Engine using Mirror of Fate, which is one of the craziest cards I've ever read. Mm-hmm. You can sacrifice Mirror of Fate and you choose up to 7 face-up exiled cards you own, and then you exile all the cards from your library, and then you put the chosen exiled cards in your library. You doomsday pile with exiled cards. And so when you have the Dominion bracelet that also exiles itself, you can just infinitely loop passing between you and another player and just Dominion bracelet mind slavering them every turn.
It's disgusting.
Once again, one of these days you will describe a synergy that isn't the most horrid thing ever, but today is not that day. I do kind of want to like to seize onto a kernel of something that you mentioned there, though. You know, back to this person's question about like, there's a true disappointment that can come with your decks no longer being the thing that makes you smile. But you just mentioned swapping a deck over. And I do notice that within myself, even if I do take a deck apart and I don't immediately have something else to build, I do notice down the line that there is some sort of soul of that deck that has stuck around that I'm not done with just yet. So one of the decks that I took apart and have not rebuilt so far, actually my mono green Titania deck, which is one of my best performing decks of the past 2 years, I've not been playing it. And so I haven't really put it back together just yet. And my +1 counters deck, my Rayhan deck. Both of those decks were just things that I have not been playing very frequently. But I like them both. I like the lands aspect and I like big creatures. I like +1 counters and doing stuff. And then lo and behold, Earthbender cards come out. And I'm seeing this Avatar Kyoshi just immediately like, boom, 8/8, go. And I'm like, oh, lands, +1 counters. And I'm kind of noticing as I've been tinkering with that and trying to put stuff together and playtesting it even tonight, I'm like, oh, wow, that the soul of those decks that I haven't put back together is kind of finding a new home here. It's this is the type of experience that I was after with both of those decks, but this might be a new home that I'm actually going to play more frequently that still hooks into a thing that I enjoyed about those previous experiences that I wasn't getting from those areas as much as I wanted to anymore. So that's kind of a thing that I observe, is that very consistently when I've taken a deck apart, I'm rarely done with the idea entirely. And there is probably something down the line that I might be able to manifest that a little bit more or find new lessons to learn with that concept. So that's something that potentially for that listener, for that viewer, maybe that's a helpful thing to like keep in mind, or to at least keep a weather eye on the horizon.
I totally relate to the idea of a soul of a deck. This is also a piece of advice I give with pet cards, because I think a common like definition of them is that they're cards you just kind of throw in decks because you like them. But I really like to, if I have something I really like, I like to build around it. I like to make it like the most beautiful home, just like this picturesque house of a deck for it.
Yeah.
And kind of make it as good as it possibly can be, and as kind of distilled as it possibly can be. And I've also kind of had things I really like transfer from deck to deck. So like I had a Glissa Sunslayer ramp deck a while back, and the only reason that ended up getting disassembled is because I figured out a way to do the things I like in that deck, but without some of the things I dislike and with some extra stuff. So I think it's kind of a refinement of, the thing I really liked about that deck. And I think if you can kind of identify what you really enjoy and chase it, you can, sort of transfer that essence deck to deck, and not necessarily end up with just a massive pile of commander decks, which I personally, that's not for me.
This is so weird. I don't know if anyone's going to remember this. I might be, once again, completely tangenting us, but I don't know, blame Elk.
We are already on the 5th tangent here. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, you're the one who invited me, so
at all.
Blame you for all tangents. There was like an old Goosebumps book or Goosebumps episode of that show where I think it was like the living dummy, like the Night of the Living Dummy. We're trying to kill it. Its soul would still hop into another person anyway. Like sometimes that's how our commander decks are. Sometimes our commander decks are the Night of the Living Dummy. They are not killable. Even if you think you're taking them apart, that soul is still going to linger with you for a little bit. And I do think it takes a lot to be officially done with a certain archetype, to really be done with like, oh, I've fully explored treasure decks completely now. I no longer need to have a treasure deck in my roster.
Oh, good luck.
I've fully explored a +1 counter deck or a tokens deck or whatever. I no longer need one of those in my roster. That has happened to me pretty infrequently. I think one of the few times that it's like, I had a group hug deck for a really, really long time, but that is an archetype that I have made my peace with. I'm like, all right, I explored this a whole lot and I no longer need to have it in my roster quite as much anyway, because I've internalized all the lessons that it could have taught me. But that took years to really feel properly done with it. Whereas a lot of my other archetypes that I tinker around with, whether it's life gain or goad or +1 counters or whatever, those are still things where those Night of the Living Dummy souls are still hopping around from place to place for me.
Moving on to our next question.
Oh my God, there's more. I'm sorry. We took like 14 minutes on a single question. I'm really good at this, I promise.
This next one's shorter. There's a lot less introspection here. This comes from Mason Grittin, a bunch of numbers. Mirror, mirror, I cast Glaciers against a mono red deck and proceed to explain why it's actually fine and chill, because that's how Glaciers actually work, and then talk about Glaciers for the next 15 minutes before realizing everyone already left to ask, are there any bad cards that you like because their mechanics are so flavorful, like Glaciers?
Bad cards that you like because their mechanics are flavorful.
I've been really digging Tyrant of Discord lately.
Oh yeah,
it's just like a 7-mana 7/7 elemental that you choose an opponent when it enters, and then they sacrifice a random permanent, and if it's a non-land permanent, they do it again, repeating. And I just find that play pattern of just random sacking to be very kind of satisfying and evocative in a way that I don't think any other Magic card is to me.
I personally am a huge fan of controlling my opponent's turns, but I was not expecting to be as big of a fan as Cruel Entertainment as I am.
Oh, that's a really good answer. That's a really fun answer.
Cruel Entertainment sucks, by the way. This card blows. I'm never cutting it from Cormella. It does not matter. I think my favorite thing about it is I get to give someone the Cormella experience, and it doesn't matter. You can't mess up my Cormella deck. Like, you can kill me with my Toxic Deluge. That's the one thing you can do to really ruin my life. But beyond that, I don't care if you permanently graveyard my commander. I don't care if you dump my hand. I don't care, because like I'm just going to top deck another 8-mana sorcery, right? I love Cruel Entertainment for this deck specifically, just because it is the perfect deck where everything is awful enough to not be caring about you blowing up my game plan. And it's also just so flavorful, just having two people go like, oh, entertain me, make fools of yourselves.
That's a good answer. I'm glad you put that forward. That made me think of one. My answer for this would be Prisoner's Dilemma.
Oh yeah. It causes an actual prisoner's dilemma.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It feels like the type of card that everyone at the table can just agree, all right, let's not do this type of thing. Like, just like, let's take the opposite. But then there's always going to be lurking in the back of your mind that slight nagging worry of like, but will they? and then should I get on top? Should I get ahead of this? Like, what am I gonna do? It is the type of card that does inject just a little bit of that sense into the game that will put you on the edge of your seat in a very nice way. So Prisoner's Dilemma probably fits the bill for me there, I would say.
Always vote snitch. Every single time.
I expect nothing less from you.
Never vote silence. Always vote snitch. It's great.
You would.